Andrea? Balance it out. Yeah, this is good. That's good. That's good. Right. Don't just look good either way. Really not. But everybody? All right. Your cameras ready? Good. Okay. Thank you all for joining us this morning. I'm Kwanza Hall, Atlanta City Councilman for District 2. I represent the heart of the city, downtown, midtown, Old Fourth Ward, Emmett Park, Ponce Highland. And for a long time, we've had this conversation in our city, but most recently, last 2 years or so, we've been working around criminal justice reform. We've introduced several pieces of legislation, worked with many of the individuals that are standing here with me today. Around, number one, banning the box on felon reentry. We passed that legislation in our city a couple of years ago, and now it's passed in the state, and it's a model for the rest of our country. Many of the businesses in our state have stepped up and have embraced banning the box on felon reentry, which allows felons to apply for a job without being further stigmatized by the incarceration that they receive. In addition to that, we've also introduced legislation that has called for the repeal of codes of ordinances that are called quality of life crimes. These crimes have been struck from our books. 40 of those were removed over the last year, and we work with many of the individuals here on that as well. Most recently, we passed the pre-arrest diversion program. It took us 2 years to get there. It's a great program that really focuses on solutions, not punishment, for individuals who live in most in our margins. And we kicked off our pilot in the heart of the city in the area around Peachtree and Pine in Midtown, where we have a lot of transgender prostitution, many homeless individuals who've been penalized for decades for just being homeless, just being transgender, jaywalking, crossing the street, doing things that anyone might do just trying to live, trying to survive in this society. And we figured a strategy. We're working with partners here today, and they really helped us to get things going in the right direction so Atlanta can be a city that leads on criminal justice reform. One of the most recent pieces of legislation that we brought back up, it's been in the works for a long time. It was one of the quality of life ordinances, and that was possession of marijuana of less than an ounce being a non-jailable offense. It has ruined lives. It has caused students to lose their scholarships. It has torn families apart. It's made people unemployable in our city, in our state, in our nation. And Atlanta, if no other city, should be a city that does it different. We have a legacy for civil rights in this city. We raised Dr. King. He gave his life, and so many others did, so that we would be able to lead in a different way in this city, and in this country, and in the world. And today, we have a watershed moment in our city. We're looking at legislation that will be before the full council on Monday, legislation that calls for that offense to no longer be an offense that a person can go to jail for. An offense that will just be a ticket. Yeah. And we think it links, did y'all hear me? It's an offense that will just be a ticket. Yeah. We waste millions of dollars on this on an annual basis because our officers are spending their time with petty crimes when they could be focused on violent, serious crimes, protecting our citizens, keeping them safe. But instead, we're putting young people in jail over and over and over. Great students. Students who attend the Atlanta University Center. Students who attend Georgia Tech, Georgia State. Students who are on the path of greatness. But they're forced into the criminal justice system. And as we said it before, it is the gateway. Not the drug. But this jail and other jails are the gateway to a life of crime, and it ruins people's lives. And we can do better in this city. We're going to keep our neighborhoods safe, and we're going to work in a collaborative fashion with my colleagues to pass this legislation on Monday. But we can't do it without the support of everyone that's here today, and I'd like to give them a moment to say just a little bit about their support of this initiative and where they stand on the issue. Senator Nan Orrock.
Thank you, Councilmember Hall. I am proud to represent many of the same neighborhoods and constituents that elect you to City Council. I'm proud to be here with Senator Ford. We've worked together in the Senate for years for criminal justice reform. We are working at the state for criminal justice reform. Atlanta can lead in this arena. And let me just point out, in addition to the valuable and factual information that Kwanza Hall has presented to you, that this is a question of class as well, and race as well. I have white sons who grew up in the Atlanta public school system. I've heard all the stories of what happens to them and to their classmates who are not white. African American young people bear the brunt of the enforcement of these draconian laws. They're outdated, they're outmoded, they don't serve a purpose, and they ruin lives and cost us enormous amounts in direct expenditures on our court system, our criminal justice system, as well as the cost when a life is ruined, when a family's life is interfered with these charges for possession of a small amount of marijuana. We need to move past this. Atlanta's a city that's seeking to lead in oh so many ways. Let's step out, and I'm speaking with all of my city council member friends, to please get behind this initiative, support this ordinance that will be voted on Monday, and let's move forward as a city and send the right message of inclusion and progress and of doing things a better way that benefits the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Next, we'll hear from Andrea Young. She's the Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Georgia, but also the daughter of civil rights leader and icon, Ambassador Andrew Young. Andrea.
Thank you. The ACLU of Georgia is proud to stand in support of this legislation. It's the position of the ACLU that the possession and use of marijuana should not be a crime, period. This is a very important first step. Across this country, we're spending more than $3 billion on marijuana possession. This is money that could be spent in so many constructive ways. And as you've heard, it is racially discriminatory everywhere in the country. While blacks and whites use marijuana at the same rate, everywhere in the country, these laws disproportionately fall on our African American, especially our African American young people. So we're spending billions of dollars in racially discriminatory law enforcement, taking law enforcement resources that could be spent to actually keep our community safe. Instead, we're using these laws are creating young people, taking away from the kind of promise and opportunities they have. Once you have a drug offense, it affects where you can rent an apartment, it affects where you can go to school, whether you can get money to go to school, and it certainly affects whether or not you can get good employment. So we are harming our young people by doing this. We are taking resources away from law enforcement that could keep our communities safe, and we have got to stop. So we're very, very supportive of this. We believe that mass incarceration in the state of Georgia is out of control. We're ninth in the country. This is a bipartisan issue where Governor Deal has been a leader in reducing incarceration in this state. We have a long way to go, and the ACLU is committed to working through this very complex system to stop feeding our young people into a criminal justice system that ruins their lives, virtually reduces their opportunities for the rest of their lives. So we are very proud of Atlanta. We believe Atlanta can lead on this issue, must lead on this issue, as we always do in the state. We've got to take a leadership position. And if Atlanta won't stand against racial discrimination, I don't know who will. So we've got to stand against racial discrimination and pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Solutions, not punishment. Next, we'll hear from Anana Parrish with the Davis and Bozeman Law Firm. They've been doing very innovative work around this conversation, and we'd love to hear from you today. Thank you, Anana.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
Let me do this. Is that all right?
Yep.
I just want to share a brief statement around our law firm's position. Our law firm is in a unique position on a daily basis as our civil rights, criminal, and community affairs divisions collectively bear witness to repeat patterns of racially biased policing associated with marijuana charges that disproportionately affect African Americans. Did everybody hear me?
Yes.
So We are witnessing this as a law firm every single day. It's not a myth, they're not just ghost numbers. We fully support less than an ounce of marijuana found on a person being a non-jailable offense. And we ask that the Atlanta City Council accept the proposal in the upcoming vote to only issue a ticket when you stack racially profiled traffic stops on top of forced jail time. Do you see the combination?
Yes, we do.
Okay? Racially profiled traffic stops on top of forced jail time. We as a firm have a front row seat to seeing the corralling of black people into jail under the guise of a fair and just practice. Now, the fear has been stated that lowering the offense to a ticket and $75 would cause more harm than good, but we asked the Atlanta City Council, what is good about taxing the least of us? What is good about taxing the profile, the poor, with the loss of freedom for less than an ounce of marijuana? We believe that the Atlanta City Council is in a powerful position, not only to just vote, but to enforce true justice for those who deserve to not have their freedom taken for less than an ounce of marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you, Anana. Shannon Reeves of the Jobs with Justice is going to give us a little bit on how this affects our employment system and makes people quite unemployable and ruins their lives. Shannon.
Good day, everyone. Good day. So we come to you as Atlanta Jobs with Justice because we are committed to reducing inequality and creating more economic justice in the city of Atlanta. Now, what do we all know? A charge on your record means that you might not get a job, right? When we talk about communities that have 40% unemployment rate, and we lay it next to the data of incarceration and arrest connected to marijuana, we see that this is not only an apartheid on your race, this is an apartheid on your economics. That's what this law is. This is economic apartheid. We are taking non-violent things and saying that it will prevent you from getting better jobs, that it'll keep you out of housing. These are all the things that create inequality in our city. Do we all understand that?
Yes, we do.
If we are committed to moving Atlanta out of the top 10 of inequality, we will get rid of this policy, we will stop this economic apartheid, and we will make sure that no person is being incarcerated and over-policed because they are black. The disproportionate impact of this law upon black communities is why we have economic inequality. We are using policing to create economic inequality. If we are committed to being a city of true human rights, if we are committed to being a city of true economic justice, we will remove these policies on the state and local level. So I look forward to all elected officials, every candidate, making sure that you do everything in your power to stop this economic apartheid that is created by these drug policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Next we'll hear from another one of our partners, Matthew Charles Cardinale. He's been an advocate at our city and working on a lot of the right legislative pieces. Matthew.
Hi, everybody. I'm here today to talk about this as a human rights issue. These council members love to talk about the Civil and Human Rights Museum, but what about actual civil and human rights in the city of Atlanta? Here we have a plant that has been used for thousands of years as a medicine consisting of myriad cannabinoids, which we now know are natural to the human body and which moderate extreme states in the human body as well as toxins. Just like there is a respiratory system that allows us to breathe, and just like there is a skeletal system that gives our bodies structure, there is an endocannabinoid system that allows cannabinoids, again, to moderate extreme states and toxins within the body, and that's why numerous diseases are alleviated with this miracle plant. And that means that marijuana has been defamed, slandered, libeled, and downtrodden. But guess what? Y'all remember the Karate Kid? Well, I am a man who will fight for marijuana's honor. I lived as a law student in 2 states in just recent years, came back to Atlanta from Oregon and before that in Washington. And I observed the legalization of cannabis without issue. There is no chaos in those states, and that's not even what we're proposing to do here. Oregon first decriminalized cannabis in 1973, which means they eliminated the possibility of jail time. No one was confused. Chaos did not ensue. Oregon just stopped putting people in cages for a medicinal plant. And the city of Atlanta's communications department, the administration, would have us believe that we're confused about what's being proposed here today. Is anybody confused? No? Oh. Well, they would have us believe that the media is responsible for using the wrong word, decriminalization. It is not the wrong word. Do not issue a correction, because decriminalization is an umbrella term that has been used to describe the elimination of jail time in many states across this country. So we're not confused. Atlanta, can we take the lead for once, please, and pass this ordinance on Monday? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew. Next we'll hear from Stanley Atkins II, the veteran and public health advocate. Stanley.
Whoop, whoop. Hey.
Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to start off with a statement from the late great Dr. Martin Luther King. Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and consensuous stupidity. Cannabis laws are consensuous stupidity. We are battling 80 years of negative propaganda against a plant that has never killed one person. I, as a cannabis advocate, was kicked out of high school for possession of cannabis. I was kicked out of the United States military after serving 2 deployments for this same plant. 1 month after coming home, I was arrested in Truitland County for this same plant. I was luckily hired by Clayton County Fire Department as a firefighter paramedic, although I was on probation for cannabis. And he asked me, he said, "You mean to tell me you're applying for a position at the fire department and you're on probation for cannabis?" And I looked at him and I said, "Yes." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because right now it's up to me to ask, it's up to you to say no." Right now, to the Atlanta City Council and to all those out there, we don't have to repeat what's already been known. We just have to strengthen our message. Right now, we have the ability to affect change and to make Atlanta the progressive capital of the South. Take this opportunity to let other states look to Atlanta for the model. Alabama, Tennessee, Florida is in confusion. Let's show them the model, let's write the policies and procedures, and let's continue to take this to the next level. I am an active member here in Atlanta, and as you see the people behind me, my mother is here, Dr. Hodge is here, and all of you are here. So if you are all here today, then our message is getting across. I am now thanking you for this opportunity, and I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Reclassify cannabis in the city of Atlanta. I am the Canamedic, and I thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service as well. Next we'll hear from Sharon Rayvert with Peachtree NORML. Sharon.
Good morning. Thanks everybody for being here. This has been a long road for many of us. NORML was founded in 1970, and we've been fighting to get to this point for a long time. And I'm so thankful for the people that are standing behind me, that are working so diligently in the City Council and under the Gold Dome to get some common sense legislation passed around this plant. I don't do this for me. I do this for these babies right here. 1 in 3 of our children will be in jail before they hit 23. They will be arrested. The majority of those children will be arrested for cannabis possession. I heard a stat 2 days ago on a podcast that 80% of the children that are in our juvenile justice system are there for marijuana possession. Prohibition is a crime against humanity.
Amen.
This plant can save lives and it can save futures. And I am proud to be here, and I'm encouraging everyone to make calls and to get out the vote and to make sure that this vote turns in our favor. We are in support of this. Parents are in support of this all over the country. We can deal with our children on our own. We do not need state to come in and deal with it. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Next we'll hear from Social Rivera with the Racial Justice Action Center.
Good morning. Good morning. Is this what the community coming together to make justice happen in the city of Atlanta looks like? Yes, it's a beautiful sight. It's a beautiful sight. So good morning, I'm Xochitl Rivera and I'm with the Racial Justice Action Center, and I'm very glad to be here in support of this common sense legislation. Marijuana reclassification is an important step towards ending the racially biased war on drugs here in the city of Atlanta. It is an important step to bring the city of Atlanta to make it the equitable, just place that I believe we all want it to be. We got involved in this issue because it is, to be honest, embarrassing to have the kind of extreme racial disparities in a city like Atlanta. It is embarrassing and it is unconscionable. When you have all races using marijuana at the same rate, when you have a city that is pretty much divided evenly 50% black and 50% white with a sprinkling of Latinos, and we're growing, an equitable arrest rate for this, you would see about 50% of the arrests happening would be of African American people. In the city of Atlanta, over 92% of the arrests for possession of marijuana under an ounce are African American. That is an extreme disparity. That should concern every single one of us. It was actually such an extreme disparity. I thought it was probably the most extreme one I'd seen until last night. I was getting ready to speak to you all and I found the Channel 46 public poll. I don't know if you all have seen it, but it is a poll that asks the public to vote whether they are in support of marijuana reclassification in Atlanta or in opposition. So I went to vote, and you know how it is, they don't show you the results till you cast your vote. So here I am. We've been doing this work. I know that most of us agree that marijuana should be decriminalized. I know that. So here I'm thinking the poll is going to end up being a 60-40, maybe a 70-30, right? So imagine my surprise when I click on the results and I see 3,598 votes in favor and 70 in opposition. That is a 98% to 2% split. What I said is I have obviously been spending too much time around city council members and our current administration. Because while they have been hemming and hawing and stalling, like this is a controversial issue. 98 to 2, this is not a controversial issue. This is almost unanimous. I've said before that Atlanta is behind in criminal justice reform and that now is the time to catch up, but I want to be more specific. The people of Atlanta are not behind. The people of Atlanta understand exactly what needs to happen. It is our elected officials who have been lagging behind. Arresting someone for possession of small amounts of marijuana can lead to terrible consequences. As been said, a loss of housing, a loss of job, a loss of a scholarship. These arrests unfairly target our youth of color with no discernible benefit whatsoever. Our elected officials can no longer claim to champion public safety when every study shows that these arrests make us less safe and less secure. They can no longer plead ignorance. They now know how extreme the racial disparities are, and they know that arrests do not deter youth. There's a lot of work to be done. I want to be clear, if we're going to end racial disparities here in the city of Atlanta and reform our criminal justice system, we have work to do. We need to reform our court system. We need to end money bail. We need to close the city jail. Amen. This is a first step, but it puts us well on the path. There is work to do, and with this vote on Monday, our council members are going to let us know whether they are the ones who are ready and willing to do the work, or whether they are going to stand by, continue to do nothing, and allow the racial disparities that continue to destroy lives and shame our city. We look forward to seeing everyone here on Monday at that vote to ensure the council does the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Deborah Scott with Georgia Stand Up. Deborah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As we look at the city and we look at these domes and we look at these sports teams that are taking revenue from these communities, and you're asking us to stand. You're asking us to stand during the anthem. And we are stand up. And normally we would stand, but I'm asking you to take a knee today on this issue.
That's right.
Kneel with us. This is what we need for.
Noble cause.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. Turn us around. Turn us around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. We're gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Oh God, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Deborah Scott. Had a little technical difficulty. Sorry, y'all. Next, we'll hear from Dean Steed from SNAPCO. Dean?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dean Steed, and I'm the lead community organizer for the Solutions Not Punishment Collaborative. First, I would like to say that the real danger to our communities is not the use of marijuana, nor is it marijuana possession. The real danger to our communities is the use of police officers who possess the authority to occupy our communities and to target black youth for minor offenses. This has not been a war on drugs, but it has been a war on our people and on our communities, and there is blood on the hands of APD. I want to remind people that on January 26th, DeAndre Phillips, a black father and a loved one and friends to many, was murdered by the Atlanta Police Department. The reason for the stop was the smell of marijuana. DeAndre was stopped simply for the possibility of possession. And it is clear that if DeAndre was white, this incident may not have happened. This stop ultimately led to his murder. We cannot continue to allow APD to use marijuana policies as an excuse to profile our people, to harass our people, to charge large fines on our communities, and to incarcerate and cage our youth. We cannot let this be an excuse to kill and murder our people, and that's what it has been. So we are asking that City Council on Monday that you lead with your hearts, that you say communities over cages, that we start to divest away from guns and cages and put resources back into these communities, because we put APD into what is considered high crime areas. But let me tell you, black communities are not simply high crime areas. These are areas that are underserved, under-resourced, and overexploited. And our resources are being taken away from our communities and invested into officers so that they can profile our communities. And we were saying that we need those resources to be actually put back into the things that our communities need, like housing, healthcare, substance abuse treatment, jobs, good transportation, healthy foods in our communities. So I am asking that City Council on Monday that you end these racially biased arrests on our people. I want y'all to repeat after me. I believe that we will win. 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 Vote yes on Monday. Pack City Hall.
Vote yes, colleagues. Next speaker is Mary Hooks with Black Lives Matter. Mary.
My name is Mary Louise Hooks, and I'm like Miss Louise, like my grandmother. And I'm here with Black Lives Matter. My name is Tiffany Smith, and I'm also here with Black Lives Matter. And there's a few things that we want to clarify in this conversation. There's been some amazing arguments as to why we should pass this. And the studies show and the polls show that the people have decided, yeah, we paid them to do what we say we want done. Let's not get it twisted. Once we leave here, and the argument has been made. I don't think there's anybody that can watch this tonight and say if they don't pass it, then is your reasoning? Why are you keeping our people in cages? And so we must beg what happens after this conversation today on this platform. Who else are they listening to? Who else are they talking to? Who else has their ear? Because the people have decided. And once the people have decided, and we've cashed your check every time we pay our taxes, you can cash your check, then I don't understand what the problem is. Then somehow you have forgotten the terms of our agreement when we voted you into office. Let's be clear about this, y'all. This is our government. And we have an election coming up. And we're not going to forget the blood that Dean said that is on the hands of the people who are responsible for killing our children. The sheriff, you get voted in, bruh. Don't you forget that. And you better bring justice to the families of DeAndre Phillips while we're talking. And we better talk about the homies that's still in the cage right now. How far we going to roll this back? How far we going to roll this back? Because there are people right now sitting in there because they cannot afford their bail. So who gonna get them out? If we gonna get all this, let's get all of this. And let's talk about the industry that is being created right now under the medical marijuana industry. And we're only talking about this conversation right now because the urgent is need to get our people out of cages. But let's talk about the conversation of how black people are being left out on an industry that is being created. Our people are experts at this.
Talk about it.
We know about plants. We know about growing.
Yep.
Have we forgot where we come from?
Nope.
So we need to be all up in that industry. Why aren't we on the boards of the people that are deciding how this is planted? Who gets the licenses? Why aren't we making the licenses so people can apply affordable? We need a racial impact study to show how this industry is leaving out black people. And the fight for economic justice is very alive and well in this conversation. Y'all, we got some things to keep watching. This is just one press conference, yo. But we gotta be in this. If you got somebody in jail right now, call up your people, son. Call up your, this is a call to the people. Call up your city council person. Call up the people that, the sheriff. Call up the solicitor. He's voted in too. Call him out. What's gonna happen? Make sure we letting people know that we see them. And they're accountable to us. Let's not forget that. Because we ain't going to forget in November. Real talk.
And tell them.
Let's get it.
Hey. Hey. Hey.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you to everyone who's come out today. I want to acknowledge a few people. Good former Senator Vincent Ford has been standing on this issue for a long time and takes to be able to stand together. But when you're standing for what's right, it's never hard. And I also want to acknowledge Deontay McCorkle, and I think there's a few other people who come out to stand with us. And any other city council members here? Well, thank you all for coming out. It means a lot that we're standing together. There are people in support of us, but we do need to make those calls. This is about the phone calls and the text messages and the emails in to make sure you get your council members to support this very, very important initiative. This is just a start, as many have said. This is just the beginning. There's other things we can do. But let's win this one first, and then we can come back to the conversation on the jail. We can talk about fines and fees. We can talk about bonds, and we can talk about just changing the structure of the system so that everyone gets the benefits. Thank you all. I'm Kwanza Hall, City Councilman. We'll take a few questions, and we'll keep it moving.
All right, Jay.
Well, he's not elected right now, and because it's a political season, it might not be appropriate with it being on city property. But we do acknowledge his presence and appreciate him standing with us. Yes.
What do you think the chances
I mean, you know, as we've seen with all kinds of things, who would have thought that DACA would have passed when that same legislation was brought up in April and no one supported it? So, you know, I think it's about timing. It also is about, you know, people being organized and reaching out and making sure the votes are there. We're seeing very positive signs from our colleagues. And there's one tweak that I think we need to make in one of the drafts of the legislation. And if we make that tweak, it might get us in the position where we get even more votes. We want to be in a very strong position, ideally unanimous. everyone should be supporting it, not just 8 or 7 council members. We have a majority in the room, so we're leaning towards everyone getting the big idea, because if you don't support this, you really don't care. And you don't understand what it means to the lives of people that are being ruined on a daily basis. And it should be that case in this city. Yes,
this could be for anyone. Talk about possible pushback from the state. The state kind of frowns upon this. What kind of pushback might the state do to the city?
Well, I'm hearing great things at the state. Actually, I'm hearing that there's some more legislators who are going to be introducing pieces that will lean forward in this direction, at least to try to have the relationship strong. But right now, the Georgia State University falls under the Board of Regents as a state chartered entity. We have an MOU and a relationship there where the 50,000 students are not penalized and sent to the Rice Street Jail, because that's that higher penalty that they would face if they're not charged with the city charge. So they already understand it hurts students. If they get that charge, they lose their scholarships. That ruins someone's life. So I think everyone's beginning to get the benefit, and it can be any child. But the unfortunate thing is that primarily African American children and young people are penalized and don't have the legal support, don't have the power of a parent who's connected, who lives in zip codes where you never really even reach the jail. And that's the difference here, and that's what we're trying to also call out and make sure people are aware of. Yes, in the back. Well, the big idea still is, and I'll let someone else, oh sorry, the big idea is still decriminalization, because people should not be criminalized for this. But in the city, the specific code is about reclassifying it from an offense that you go to jail for to an offense that you receive a ticket for. But the idea all in all and the philosophy leans towards making it where people who possess marijuana are not treated as criminals. And that should be the plan everywhere in our country.
Amen.
Yes.
Let's start with the press first, and the other members of the press first.
I wanted to say a word as someone who serves at the state level in the state senate. I welcome this conversation becoming more emboldened and more front burner at the state level. There have been real steps forward at the state, which we've itemized already, on criminal justice reform, and the state of Georgia is being looked at as a place that stepped out. We have treatment courts across the state now that are funded by the state to give an alternative to incarceration with people that are dealing with mental problems, dealing with addiction, etc. That's an example of investment. And we've lowered the numbers in our state prison system. We have a long way to go, and the state has been timid on this question on cannabis and marijuana. There's been a battle at the state over the last 3 to 4 years around access to medical marijuana, and we have a very narrowly drawn statute that barely allows it and leaves a lot undone and a lot unsaid. So I think we heard today the opinion polls that was quoted by one of the speakers, and I think this is true across the state. I think this is true across the state, and criminal justice reform, good people, really is a bipartisan issue. It really is a bipartisan issue, and it started when George Bush signed a federal bill about return to society, restoration, and that has created an opportunity for both Republicans to step out and be part of these reforms. So I welcome the debate at the state. I'm sure you'll have people that do everything in their power to block this, but as we so eloquently heard from Black Lives Matter spokeslady, the people, that's right, are way ahead of the politicians, and election year is coming. So let us take every opportunity.
Do Black Lives Matter?
Do Black Lives Matter? 100%.
There you go.
Good answer.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, Keith.
The issue of the state, there's some concern that police still arrest if this were passed, that the police can still use state codes to make their arrests. How do you get them on the same thing?
They could, but we have a working relationship, and the culture of the police department is dictated by the executive branch and through the chief. And if we have the will in our city to not arrest unless it's some other situation that's going on, we will not be arresting people and penalizing them. It's very simple. It's just the will to do it. And I think the will is there. Chief Shields has been a strong partner on pre-arrest conversion and a part of seeing our criminal justice system for what it is and trying to lean forward and do things very differently. I mean, of course, it takes time to change the culture, but I think, and I can't tell her what to do, but I do think this is one of those things that is easy to embrace. Yes, sir. Well, I can't say my answer because I would be getting into politics as a council member in an election, and I'm using city property. Can you make sure that I'll tell you off camera. Yes, I'll tell you off camera for sure. Yes, sir. Yes, but we're on city property.
You reached out to Representative Garrett about H.R. 1227.
It is. Yes, I have not. We're dealing with the things that we can change right here, right now in the city. But we want to get in that conversation as well. We can reach out and we'll also, Senator Booker is doing some things. We support all of that, but we can change things right here on Monday. So why wait for all that? You know what I mean?
And there are, I just want to say, and there are state coalitions of people. And there are state coalitions.
Sir, there are state coalitions of people, individuals, everyday folk. We'll need, you know what I mean? The conversation starts with us. Who in your city, who in your town want to come to the table and begin having statewide conversations about it? So we're making it happen. So you know what I mean? So that's what we got to do.
I've also been involved with Georgia.
So we're all partners in this, and we're working together. I think that will end our press conference. Senator, come on.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Fort, and I were just speaking about this, that one of our colleagues in the Senate, Senator Jones, an attorney from Augusta, introduced a bill to defelonize marijuana, and it got a favorable vote in the Senate Judiciary Committee. That bill is still alive and well and will be on the front burner for those of us who are pushing on this issue in the coming session in January. So look to that. Look to our session in January on the state level to continue to mobilize, to educate, and open the eyes of elected officials to do the right thing. And that Derek Jackson in the House, where is Representative Jackson from? Maybe Savannah, but it's going to be introduced in the House as well. So that conversation is ramping up over at the state level, and it's very much tied to hard policy proposals that we can get behind.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you to the press for coming out.